Part of VOA's efforts to keep you informed on issues that most affect the continent, we are pleased to have with us live from the State Department, Stephen Feldstein, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor. Secretary Feldstein is responsible for DRL's work in Africa on international labor affairs and international religious freedom. He recently returned from Burkina Faso and the Central African Republic. Welcome to Africa 54 once again.
Thank you, Vincent. I appreciate it.
Yes. Now, I think that was quite a trip there. Two different countries that have come out of fairly significant turmoil. Let's start with Burkina Faso that had an election not too long ago. What did you find there?
Well, it was a very fascinating trip, and I think you're exactly right. You know, the idea is, especially with Burkina Faso, I found a lot of cautious optimism and very, very high expectations from civil society and from the different people that we talked to, not to mention an awareness by the government that this is really a key moment to do something different when it comes to rebuilding the country in a different form, in a different fashion, and really bringing democracy in a new way. So I found, both a very interesting context in terms of people saying we have to capture what we've gained and what we've been able to accomplish so far in terms of restarting and bringing democracy to the country, but we also need to think about the very serious challenges that the government has to grapple with, from corruption to many other things.
Yeah, and we know that former President Blaise Compaoré was not to be cracking down very hard on dissidents, but now after those demonstrations that took him out of power, now we have a new government. What are human rights advocates saying in terms of the new administration? What do they see?
Yeah, no, there's a few things. I think, first of all, there's a really big question about transitional justice. How do you deal with some of the past abuses and past issues with the prior government in a way that's both transparent and that's fair and will build credibility for the new government going forward? If there were complaints in the past that that there was corruption and other sorts of issues to the prior government, how do you start with a clean slate and say, now things will be different? Those were some of the big issues that were mentioned to me, dealing with the past and setting a firm and strong foundation going forward.
Very briefly, in terms of the relationship between the U.S. and Burkina Faso, how is it now? What is the state of that relationship?
Very strong. We're very supportive of the new government. We think that there's a lot of potential in terms of both what they have messaged and the actions that they're trying to do. I had very warm meetings with a number of different government counterparts, including very good meetings on the security side, good meetings on the justice side, where we talked about a range of issues. We talked about some of the difficulties and challenges related to the terrorist threats in the region. We talked about the need to make sure that justice and rule of law was respected and advanced in that context. And we talked about the importance of institutions and how to build those institutions in a legitimate way. And I think, between those conversations, there's a real sense that the partnership between the U.S. and Burkina Faso can really advance forward positively.
Now, moving on to the Central African Republic, is a country that has been in turmoil now for years. Recently, of course, had an election. There's a new leader in town. But there are reports that still there are massive human rights violations with constant killings in the cities and on the outskirts. What are the challenges the government told you they have to face?
Right. No, Central African Republic was interesting, and the challenges there are very significant. I would say just to start with, there's a sense of very cautious optimism that with President Touadéra and the new government, there is a real desire to turn the page on some of the past, to deal with these abuses in a legitimate way, and to move forward and try to really grapple with some of the key challenges. One of the top things that they mentioned is the concern about how to provide for security. And so what you have right now is a situation where there are still armed groups that are operating in many areas of the country. MINUSCA and the French Sangares have really done a good job working with the government to try to restore order and stability. But this is an ongoing process, and as long as these groups have arms, this is something that will be an issue that the government has to deal with. So that was one thing. The second thing that I really saw was a desire by those who have been victims of atrocities and abuses, who are still in IDP camps and other places. They want to see justice done. They say, okay, we were able to have a good election. We're now at a point where we have a government that we think respects and believes in the things we believe in, but how is my voice going to be heard in terms of the things that happened to my family and to my friends in the last few months? And those are the issues that will have to be grappled with in a serious way.
And a big challenge also, because we know some of those have also accused international, especially peacekeeping forces, of having violated their rights. What kind of reassurances do they want to hear from, say, the United States and others who can exert some pressure on the authorities there?
No, that's a very good point. These sexual exploitation and abuse allegations are very serious, and these are things that we discussed with UN counterparts while in Bangui and Central African Republic. What they want to see, I think, is a continued commitment by international bodies as well as troop-contributing countries to hold transparent and accountable investigations to make sure that the perpetrators of these crimes, if found true, are put on trial in a real way, and that punishment is accorded justly. But they also want to see that there is going to be deterrence, that things are not going to keep going the same way, that the trickle of allegations that have persisted will be stopped, and that a new way of handling these issues, new protocols by the peacekeeping forces and so forth, are something that will really be instituted in a legitimate way, as the Secretary General has been very forceful and very good about saying.
Well, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Vincent. I appreciate it.
All right. Stephen Feldstein is the Deputy